why does Ram Janmabhoomi deserve an exceptional treatment through non-application of the Places of Worship Act, which exemption is not available either to Kashi, Mathura or any other temple? Isn't that discrimination according to the constitution? So,
What did the court say then? Why was it special? Why was it different?
the court did not say anything to that effect. So here's what happened. And just pardon me here, I'm going to get slightly academic here, but I think it's important. We are being told constantly in public discourses and other places that the Ayodhya verdict itself has taken a position on the Places of Worship Act. And therefore, the challenge to this act is meaningless because apparently that judgment has given a stamp of approval to the act and its constitutionality. Okay? We are being told you can't challenge this because the Constitution bench has already said this is a perfectly constitutional act. Point number one. The constitutionality of the Places of Worship Act was never an issue in the Ram Janmabhoomi case.
Yeah, why?
Because the act says, section 5 says that this dispute is outside the purview of the application of this act.
Yeah, because it was pre-1991.
Not just that. According to them, they have just said, see that the reasons for it we don't know.
They said no, that it was already in court before the 1991.
Then what about, let's say, okay, the only fact of the matter is there was a pending litigation, so to speak, since 1858. But the fact of the matter is the provision says this is exempt, right? If the provision says that the act exempts its application to this dispute, that means there is no reason to discuss the act in the context of the dispute. So the law basically says, and this is from the Supreme Court, no finding of the court on an issue which is not an issue before it in a particular case is binding. मुद्दा आपके सामने खड़ा ही नहीं हुआ किसी, let's say, case में. Your observations in that regard are what we call obiter dicta, marginal observations, non-binding observations, no precedential value. Okay? So for whatever it's worth, those findings do not come in the way of a challenge because they are obiter dicta. Second, as far as the trigger for the discussion in the Ayodhya judgment itself, you'll be surprised at what has happened. 3 judges pass a verdict, a 2-1 verdict in Allahabad in favor of the temple side in the context of Ram Janmabhoomi. One of them, I think, is Justice Sharma. I think there are 2 Hindu judges. One is Justice Sharma, Justice Agarwal, and I think it's Justice Khan. So one of them so one of those judgments of the 3 judges becomes the trigger for the Supreme Court to take it up. Now, why does the Supreme Court take it up here? Supreme Court says, in the 3-judge verdict, the Places of Worship Act has been discussed by the lower court or by the Allahabad High Court. Therefore, we will have to decide or we'll have to adjudicate upon it. The single judge, or let's say the judge of the Allahabad High Court as part of the 3-judge bench, never discussed the Places of Worship Act at all. He was quoting a 95 judgment of the Supreme Court to say that it is possible to enforce rights under Article 25 through standard suits. And in that judgment, in the extracted portion, there was a reference to Places of Worship Act. That extraction is there in the Allahabad High Court judgment. The Supreme Court mistakes this extraction to be a finding of the judge of the Allahabad High Court, when in fact he was merely quoting it. There was no such issue for him to even decide on. And then for 10 pages, the Supreme Court discusses the Places of Worship Act, saying he has decided or he's returned a finding, so we too have to comment on this particular issue. It's actually based on a proper clerical error. Proper clerical. And I wrote an article to this effect in 2020, within 6 months of the judgment. And I wrote 2 pieces on my blog called Yukti, immediately after the judgment, saying there is a very glaring error here. There's no reason for this discussion to have taken place either legally or even factually. After I published this article in a particular portal, check out which portal this is, they asked me to stop writing. They asked me to stop writing. Until then, they were literally after me saying, एक column to लिख दो, हफ्ते के लिए लिख दो, this is what they said. And after they said, थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया. I said, what was wrong in this? So therefore, there is no constitutional bar. There is no judgment that effectively shields this act from any challenge. But the best possible position I am taking, or even Vishnu is taking, and which is on record is...
On the Kashi.
No, just on the act. Act को रहने दो. उससे कुछ नहीं होगा. Because the act speaks of the possibility of a survey to determine if a particular site is an archaeological site within the meaning of the Archaeological Act of 1958, which is it has to be 100 years or more. So the moment you establish within the meaning of that particular provision, section 4.3, that this is indeed a site which is more than 100 years, then the bar under the act stops applying. That means you can say that reclamation is possible once you establish it's beyond 100 years.
So you bring the ASI first.
Correct. That's what has
determine.
happened here. ASI का सर्वे
संबल,
कराइए,
हाँ.
find out कि ये 100 साल है या उससे पुराना है, इसके नीचे क्या था, सब निकालिए.
Is the ASI equipped to go to the 40,000 sites to go and see it?
Well, if this country is serious about it, then it can ramp up.
Do subscribe to the ANI Clips channel to get shorter versions of this podcast. Click here to watch the full episode.